So the next question, Mark, tell me about a time when you failed and what you've learned from that experience.
When I think about, there's one experience that comes to mind when I think of a failure in my life, and that experience is when I worked at Payless Shoe Source as a distribution analyst in 2004. I just graduated here from BYU in financial services. That was my emphasis that I had, and I was really excited to just put my analytical skills and abilities to the test. And I was put into this inventory management position, more or less, where I was managing multi-million-dollar inventory levels for 4,000 stores worldwide. And so I went through extensive training. There were 2 weeks of training where I was learning the analytics and the tools and the resources that were available to me to make these inventory decisions of how much product to send to which stores to make sure it was done in the right quantity at the right time and to the right places. And so I went through this extensive training. It was very fascinating. I made sure I understood the ins and outs of the process. And after 2 weeks was over, it was then time for me to I was given 25 pairs of shoes that I was going to be responsible for to now send out to 4,000 stores worldwide. And for me, that was kind of daunting at that point. I got, my paper was given to me of the 25 pairs of shoes I was given, and I kind of froze, to be honest. I'd heard horror stories of, thousands of pairs of winter boots being sent down to Florida, and how that they had to liquidate those boots, and it was a big problem for the organization. And I had this kind of paralysis by analysis, situation that I was faced with. I just kept analyzing and making sure that I had my numbers right, and I wasn't going to make any mistakes, and I just couldn't pull the trigger to send the pairs of shoes to the stores they needed to go to. And so anyway, after about a week of this, I hadn't yet sent one pair of shoe to any stores worldwide, and my manager saw this, and she pulled me aside and said, "Mark, you know what, we need to talk." And she said, "I'm a little disappointed in you. I'm disappointed because you've actually explained to me that you understand how this process works. You understand how these inventory levels work, and you understand how to send pairs of shoes out in the right quantities at the right time at the right places. But I'm disappointed because you're not executing." And so we had this conversation. It was kind of an eye-opening experience for me. It was a wake-up call for me, if you will. And I remember going back to my desk after that conversation and thinking, you know what, she's right. I understand this. I can't be afraid. Sometimes you have to take data and what you have, and you have to make a decision and move forward and execute. And so I remember looking at the data one last time and then actually executing. And from that time forward, I've never really had a problem with it. Within 6 months of that experience, I was training three new employees that came into the organization, and I was actually up for promotion at my year mark, even though I didn't stay with Payless at that time. And so I've really learned from that experience that when you have data, when you have analysis that needs to be done, yes, it's important to analyze things, but if you're paralyzed by it and you can't make a decision, then that could cripple you in the end. And so that was one experience where I really learned from, and I've taken that experience and applied that to the rest of my career, and I feel like I've done a pretty good job executing since then.